Alright everyone, so this is going to be a guide on the Ridge Motorsports Park out in Shelton, Washington. I've definitely put in well over 100 laps of this track at this point, probably double that if you count simulator laps. The track has changed, but I think a lot of the same holds true. I think I have the NA record in an S2000 as well as kind of a pretty respectable time of being in the 40s here. I think kind of like sub 55 is probably quick, and then sub 50 is probably like fast at this track. Definitely it's going to continue to get faster. I'm obviously in a pretty low power car here, but I think it kind of accentuates a lot of the things to do right, and how you can get a lot quicker and extract a lot more time here. So without further ado, let's get into it. Alright, so first thing here, we're coming down the main straight. Obviously the first corner is a left, so we're going to want to hug right as tight as possible. So I'll pause here real quick. Now, the brake zone here is going to depend a lot on the car. I would say most cars nowadays, like a Supra, an M3, something like that, is going to be doing anywhere between 130, 140, even 150 miles an hour here. So most cars will have a legitimate brake zone here. The S2000 pretty much doesn't, because it just scrubs off so much speed. So you'll see me blip down to fourth here, and that's about it. And then I can enter this corner. Now, one thing that's interesting here is most people tend to head all the way out to this cone here, and that's actually not what we want to do. We want to be about a car width off of the outside, and the reason for that is really the goal is to straighten out this corner up and over the hill and carry as much momentum as possible. If we go all the way out here to the far right of the track, this corner at the top of the hill is going to be really sharp. So actually what we want to do is leave a little bit of space here. So you'll see right about here, I'm at about a car width off the right side of the track, maybe even a little bit more. I definitely recommend scrubbing some speed here. As much fun as it is to carry in cornering speed into T1, the T1 to T2 is kind of a throwaway. Really what we're going to do is make sure we set ourselves up really well for T2 over the hill, and then T3 so we can carry a bunch of speed onto this next section. So carrying speed up to the hill here and coming over right. So I'm going to pause here again. So you can see I'm very far to the right side of the track. Again, the goal here is we want to carry that momentum out onto the straight. So there's a fundamental theory here about basically how to approach a corner. And when a corner leads onto a straight, the exit of that corner is much more important to the entry of a corner. On the flip side, if a corner leads into another tighter corner or another similar speed corner, we don't really care so much about the exit, we care more about the entry. In this case, however, the corner leads into a straight section, so we want to focus on carrying out the exit speed. So getting back to what that means here is, when we cross the hill at T2, we want to be far to the right side of the track because that's going to allow us to get maximum exit out of 3 and 4. So I'm to the far right. And here you'll notice I'm about a car width off, maybe a little bit less off this inside. And this is because if I hug this too tight, the next corner is going to be even tighter. By being a car width off here from this first apex, I'm able to make it almost all the way out here. And now I'm going to be able to draw a much better arc. And in fact, I would argue that this is not perfect. In fact, if I was a little bit further off that and a little bit further to the right, I could even carry more speed out here. So you'll notice as I exited that corner, I used all the track. I exit all the way to the right. A common mistake I see people do is they see this curve up here and they draw a straight line and end up, way off. There's no reason to do that. We have all the track over here to the right. We want to use all that track as much as possible to carry the maximum momentum. Once we are going here, so T6 is a really interesting corner. After the repave, it's definitely changed. I think the double apex line is now definitely the fastest line through here. So I approach this corner by starting to the far right, and then I start to head in towards the first apex. So as we go in here, right about here is the first apex of the corner where I'm about to start turning in. Now, if your car is more of a momentum car, you're going to want to be further to the right side of the track. That's going to allow you to carry more momentum around this. If your car has more power, you can actually hug this even tighter because you're going to be able to get plenty of exit speed out of it. My car is relatively momentum oriented, but I still find that just about a car width off is the fastest pace for me personally here. So there's like the tightest part of the radius here, and now I'm headed back inside the corner for the next apex. So Typically, I find what's fastest is to be apex just a little bit before this cone. Obviously, the cone can move every day, but what we want to make sure of is basically that, we don't hit this too early. The other thing is we want to accelerate out and use most of this track, but not necessarily all out of it. So I'm headed back to the center, and you'll see I'm headed back right. Another common mistake I see people do is they will stick all the way to the right of the track. They'll see this berm here and they'll be like, oh, I should stick to the right because, that's the apex. While that's true, there's no real gain to doing that. And if we stay really tight here, what's going to happen is we're going to pinch ourselves down at this corner at the bottom of the hill. Instead, by sacrificing just a little bit of exit in T6, when we come down this hill, we're going to be able to carry more speed into it and brake later. So I'm coming down the hill about in the middle, and then I am going to be aiming for kind of this section over here. So there's my brake zone, and you'll notice the turn-in is pretty early. It's way before this yellow cone here. The reason for this is after the repave, this corner is significantly different in my opinion. Before it was a late turn in and basically be off this and then hit the second apex. After the repave, this corner is significantly different. I think partially because camber, partially because the curbs, etc. But now you can actually hit both of these and be fast. It probably makes sense to be a little bit farther off this than it does the second one, but it doesn't matter a whole lot. So we turn in early, we hit here, and then we start bleeding on throttle, and we'll find that we basically, on that exit, so just kind of watch that one more time, we actually have a lot of track on the exit. So to go back to here, oops, yeah, I think it's about right. No, that is not right. Sorry, bear with me, folks. So we're going down the hill, we're sticking to the right, we turn in early, we can hit this apex, and then there's plenty of track here, and the track is actually widening, so we can get on this nice and early. Coming up the hill for cars like mine is really a non-event, but obviously in high-powered cars, this corner can get tight. One thing that is easy to miss is you actually have to turn in quite early from this. So while it is at the cone, and this video may not capture it, you are so far away from this apex at this point. But the fact of the matter is you actually need to start turning in already to hit it. Depending on your car, you may use all the track, you may not. The interesting part is when we crest the hill, you'll see this cone here. If you start turning in here, it's not going to set you up well for the next corner. You'll see that I'm already starting to make my way over to this cone here. That's actually what I'm aiming for because I want to straighten out this next section of corners. So I'm trying to straighten this out. Now the next thing here to follow up on is we're not all the way right at this cone. What instead we want to do is try to stay towards the middle and line ourselves up to the outside. So that's going to allow us to draw a nice arc on the outside, a mostly straight brake zone, but really set us up for maximum attack out of this. So here I'm coming in and I'm bleeding it towards the outside. Then as we get into this corner, because we took it so wide, we're going to be able to carry a lot more momentum than someone who maybe attacked it from the middle. Before, this was maybe net neutral, but now I think with the repave and additional curbs, this definitely is the more sensible line. Pretty much as soon as we start that really sharp initial turn-in, we can start bleeding on the power and make sure that we use all of this exit speed here. This corner is pretty textbook, so I won't spend too much time talking about it, this right-hander here. But one of the keys that's really, really tricky about this corner is it is off camber basically the entire way until you crest the hill. So what this means is as you're going across it, you feel like you can't carry much speed and you're worried you're going to understeer or oversteer depending on how your car's set up. But actually, as soon as you hit the apex, the car is going to have significantly more grip. So I'm kind of giving it maintenance throttle, but actually you can get on it a bit earlier than you think. Definitely worth using all of the exit on that corner. There's a lot of it. This next corner here, I think, is pretty self-explanatory. Just try to get around it. There, however, is a lot of discrepancy about this part right here. So if you notice, I'm set up about a car width off of this. In my mind, this top of the hill, so this first left-hander down the hill, is the throwaway corner. We actually don't care about it. It doesn't matter. It's just a way to get us from the top of the hill to down here where we're going to start accelerating onto the straight. So what we really want to do is just get through this whole section as fast as possible. The first one's tight. There's no fast way through it. It doesn't matter. So we might as well sacrifice a little bit more to get better momentum through this next corner. I do this by kind of giving about that car width off the edge. This allows me to line up here. So right here is probably the most pivotal thing that I do differently from a lot of people, and is why my very low horsepower car is able to kind of briefly keep up with a lot of people coming onto the straight, and this comes from lining up onto the straight. So there is a cone, you can't quite see it, it's right about here just past this Porsche. Now, a lot of line that you'll typically see people do is cut in right here, hug the inside around, and once it starts to straighten out, they'll bleed on throttle. The problem with this is that doesn't actually maximize our speed onto the straight. Because the straight is extremely long, half a mile long in fact, what we want to do is maximize that speed onto the straightaway. It doesn't really matter if we give up a little bit more in this corner, because the speed we make onto the straightaway is going to give us a gain the entirety of the straightaway. So we really want to focus on exit speed because there's such a long straight. So I'm going to be aiming for here, but there's going to be one very critical thing, which is the direction of the car. So if you notice right here, my car is almost straight, and I am already basically parallel to the edge of the racetrack. A common practice that I see people do is when they are coming down here, and let's say they even get this part right, where they're heading here, is they will take the straight line to there. The problem with this is now your car is pointed towards the grass and you need to be pointed this way. The important part is not just that we end up our car placed here, but also that we angle our car parallel to the edge of the track, because that's going to set us up for the acceleration. So stay to the outside very early, parallel to the outside, and now I am already bleeding on throttle. I am getting on power really, really early here. Obviously, this came in front of me, took the tighter line, and you're going to see he is getting away from me, but not as quickly as he should, given his power advantage. This wasn't the best example, but definitely that exit there is going to give you a lot of speed onto the straight. And if you're in a low power car, it's also going to help close that gap. So give one more lap a bit faster now. So again, just aiming towards this kind of middle section of the track here. That way we're able to straighten out this crest over the hill. We're sticking to the right here, leaving some space off the edge. Gonna give us a nice arc around this. Use all the track on the exit here. Stick to the right side to set us up into this corner and make this not as sharp. Head more towards the center of the track here. Tighten up and start heading for the second apex of the corner. Keep tightening it up. Be patient. Bleed on throttle, don't use all the track, and continue to stay to the left side of the track. Brake here, and then turn in early for that apex, and we're actually going to get the pass here. Get on that second apex there. Start lining up, start turning in way earlier than you think you need to. Use all the track on the exit. Start turning in here as soon as you start to crest the hill, so we can draw this straight line here. Head down the middle of the track, aiming to the right side. Sharp, hard turn in, but then start releasing and getting on power as soon as possible. Head back to the left side of the track, brake hard, turn in relatively late, bleed on power earlier than you think. There's plenty of track and grip after you cross that apex. Continue to attack this. Brake early here, brake more than you need to. This first corner is the throwaway corner. We give up about a car width of track there, head back towards the inside. We're going to stay way wide, keep the direction of the car angled the right way, start turning back in, bleeding on throttle nice and early, getting a ton of momentum onto the straightaway. So by the time I am fully straight, I'm going almost 90 miles an hour out of that first corner, and you got to think, that's in a car with just about 200 at the wheels. So hopefully this guide was helpful. Hopefully you can get faster at the ridge. Definitely let me know what you think.